All right, welcome to another episode of Closers or Losers. Today, I'm going to do something different that we don't do a lot. Today, I'm going to give you about a 20-minute training on a couple different subjects to help you somewhere. Matt, spending some family time with his family today. He's not even in the Australian office. He's just chilling at home. I was like, look, let's not do a podcast today. Let me go in there. Let me find some comments that people are making on some of our podcast posts. Like, I need help with this. How do you do this? How do you do that? And I'm going to do like a 15, 20, 25-minute training on a couple of those subjects. So how many of you, here's what we're going to start with today. How many of you lose sales when you get to the end of your sales call, sales appointment, maybe your sales process if you sell B2B and it's more of a complex sound environment, and the prospect says, hey, can you just send me some references? Like, can you just send me some references? You send them some references, really good ones. And surprise, surprise, when you call the prospect back, they've never called the references or they've talked to the references and they just ghost you and they're gone. So how does that happen? How many times have you lost sales when the prospect says, send me references, you give them references, and then you never hear back from them? Let's stop that from ever happening again, because there is a reason why they're asking for references. I'm going to break that down, and then I'm going to show you in the screen behind me exactly what to say and ask to close that deal. Okay, now, here's what I want you to understand first. 99% of the time, okay, this is crazy. Most of the time when a prospect says, send me references, is because they have some type of concern. That's why they're asking for references. There's something you said or questions you didn't ask that has triggered uncertainty in that prospect's mind. And that's exactly why they're asking for references. They don't trust that you can get them the results they said. That's why they're going to talk to references. Now, that's one reason. Another reason is they could be just trying to get rid of you. That happens, okay? So those are basically the two reasons. So there's a couple things we want to do there, okay? Sometimes there will be a few people here and there that just for them to speak to a reference will be the thing that pulls them over. That's very rare, though. It's probably less than 10% of the time. I would say not even that, okay? Most of the times because they have a concern that they're not wanting to tell you, or they're just trying to get rid of you. So we have to do a couple things. First of all, we want to ask some qualifying questions to really find out if the prospect is serious about changing their situation, they have a concern, or they're just wasting their time. So let me show you a few different scenarios. Let's say the prospect says this. I even wrote some notes here to keep track of this for you. Let's say the prospect said, this sounds really, really good, James, but can you send me some references from clients that you have so I can talk to them? Now, you don't want to say, yes, here's some references, call them and get back to me, because that's not going to work. You know that they're probably not going to get back to you. Say this, okay? Yeah, that's not a problem. Just so I can send the right people to you, what specifically would you like to discuss when you guys talk? Well, we wanted to know how it handles in this ABC situation and what it does with that. Ah, okay, that makes sense. Now, when you ask how it handles in the ABC situation, you must be asking that for a reason. Or now you must be asking me that for a really good reason when you're talking about how it handles in the XYZ situation. Has that happened to you before with the ABC model you've been using? Or that makes sense. Now, when you wanted to know how it handles in the ABC situation, is that something that concerns you? Oh, well, it does. Well, can you tell me a little bit what's behind that question, just so I have a better understanding? Well, a year ago we used this company and it did X and Y and Z, and they tell you a concern. Maybe they use some other vendor or something if you sold B2B, and whatever they said would happen just didn't happen, okay? And then you could say, can you tell me a little bit more about that just so I can understand? And usually they just throw up on you their concern. You're able to answer it, help them overcome it, and then they don't even ask for references. Now, let's pretend, though, that they were just kind of vague. They wouldn't tell you what they wanted to talk. Well, I just wanted to see their experience. Well, okay. And we've got thousands of clients. If you only have hundreds, say we've got hundreds or whatever. Well, we've got thousands of clients. There's going to be a lot that probably would, want to share with their experience. Maybe it might help me to send you the best people too that can answer your question if I knew a little bit more about what you want to discuss with them. Like if you really thought about it, like what are the important parts that we went over that you'd like to discuss with them so I can give you the right people that are going to know about it. Well, I really want to know. See, that's another way you can get at the concern. Okay, now let's say you go through all that and they're still wanting to talk to a prospect. Now you need a scheduled time. You need like organization. You need to know who they're calling. You need to know when they're calling, and you need to have a firm appointment after that and to know what the next step is after they talk to the prospects. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. So you say something like this. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, when do you plan on calling them, just so I know to see if they'd be available for you? Okay. Or, yeah, that makes sense. When do you plan on calling them so I can let them know to see if they'd be available for you? Well, I'd probably call them tomorrow afternoon if that works. Let's say if they say that. Well, I'd probably call them tomorrow afternoon, or I'd call them sometime this week. Now, don't fall for that, because typically, let's say if they say, I'm going to call them tomorrow, and they say they're going to call them tomorrow. They don't give you a time. And then you wait till the next day and you call them. Hey, did you get a hold of Bob and Sally? Oh, I didn't have time. I didn't call them yet. And then here you are again, chasing them. Now you have to set up another appointment. So you want a specific time. Okay. So they say, well, I'd probably just call them tomorrow afternoon or maybe the next day if that works. Well, here's what I can do, John, because they're pretty busy. What I can do, if it helps, is I can reach out to them to see if that would work for their schedule. Now, let's pretend for a moment that the clients you talk to say good things about how we were able to solve the same type of problems that you had mentioned your company's having. At that point, where do you think we should go from there? Now, look at what I wrote here. And I can reach out to them to see if that would work for their schedule. Now, let's pretend for a moment that the clients you talk to say good things about how we were able to save them, solve the same type of problems that your company's having. At that point, where do you think we should go from there? Okay, see how that works. Now, let me give you a warning. If you simply agree to send a prospect references without a commitment to know when they are calling them, okay, and specifically what the next step is after they call them, you will more than likely never hear from that prospect again because there's no commitment, all right? So you have to make sure you have that commitment. So I'm going to move this over a little bit here. I'm going to role play this again with you. Watch my tone, hear my tonality, watch everything that I'm doing here. So that makes sense. When do you plan on calling them just so I can see if they're going to be available for you? Well, I'd probably just call them tomorrow afternoon or maybe Wednesday if that works. Okay, what I can do, John, is reach out to them to see if that would work for their schedule. Now, let's pretend for a moment that the clients that you talk to, obviously say good things about how we were able to help them solve the same type of problems that you'd mentioned you're going through. At that point, where should we go from there? Now, we have to hear from the prospect. At that point, we would do business, or at that point, we would do this. If the prospect comes back and says, well, at that point, I'd have to see if we have the budget for this. Well, then you have a major problem. Then they have some type of money or budget concern you need to help them overcome before they even talk to that prospect, okay? But that's the reason why you ask at the end, at that point, where do you think we should go from there? Because if they have another concern, they're typically going to say it. If they say, we would do business with you, or we would go to the next steps, then this is the last step in the process, okay? Now, I'm going to give you a couple of more scenarios because we had a couple people just, message us. And by the way, like what I just showed you is just like a basic little nibble, okay? It's like a little hors d'oeuvre that I gave you. You want to get a lot more training than that. Make sure you join our free Facebook group. Go to salesrevolution.pro. Go to salesrevolution.pro. We go live in there 3 to 4 times a week with different trainings, different Q&As. On little subjects. We give you a little more nibbles. You want more advanced training than that, just message us in that Facebook group or email support or call support, and you can book with one of our team members to go over training options for your industry, because I can pretty much assure you we are training tons of people in your industry, if not hundreds, probably if not thousands in your industry that are making 3, 4, 5 times more than you are. And it's not because they're just cool. It's just because they've acquired more advanced skills that work with human behavior than what you've acquired yet. Okay, these are just little nibbles that I'm showing you. Now, what do you do if you get into, let's say that you call a lead, okay, and the lead says right in the beginning, like, hey, I'm really busy. Can you just send me a quote? Can you just, I don't have time. Can you just send me a quote, or can you just send me a proposal? How often do you lose sales because of that? Then you put together a quote, you put together a proposal, you email it to them, and what happens? 99% of the time, you never hear back from the prospect again, okay? Because without any real discovery of helping that prospect build a gap in their mind from where they are compared to where they want to be, like what are their problems, what the root cause are, how's it affecting them, where do they really want to be, you emailing a quote or proposal is not going to get most people there. It's not going to get 99% of your prospects there. You're just wasting your time doing that. So you want to take control of that conversation. The first thing you want to do is disarm them. Okay, so the first thing you might say, I wrote it up here. Yeah, that's not a problem. What is it that you're hoping to see from a quote, just so I have a better understanding? Or, yeah, that's not a problem. What is it that you're hoping to see from the quote? Well, I'm just trying to see if you have the budget for the XYZ product service program. Ah, okay, I understand. Now, it might make sense before I send you a quote, if I understood a little bit more about who you're using for the XYZ and the type of results you're getting from that, just to see if we can even help you, because maybe you don't even need us. For example, what type of, and then you go right into asking a few of what's called situation questions to find out their current situation. Now, let's analyze this, okay? Now, you agree with them. Ah, okay, I understand. It might make sense, that's neutral. Before I send you a quote, if I understood a little bit more about who you're using for the XYZ, blah, 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 just to see if we could even help you in the first place, because maybe, look at here, because maybe you don't even need us. For example, why on earth would I say, because maybe you don't even need us? Because that disarms the prospect. Now, do I know they need us? More than likely, okay? Do they know they need us in the first 30 seconds of a call? Not likely at all, right? There's no trust, there's no credibility. Now, after I start going through that discovery call and start building a gap from where they are compared to where they want to be by my advanced questioning skills, you know what they're going to start to realize? That they really do need us, okay? But in my beginning of this, I have to disarm them where they let their guard down. Okay, if I come in there like, oh, I know that we can help you, and I know we can give you the best service, and I know we can do this. Well, you sound like every other salesperson that tries to sell them anything. So all that does is trigger sales resistance in most people. You want to disarm them where they let their guard down and become open to what you're offering. There is a massive difference once you learn that. Now, let's say that after that conversation goes through, okay, now if you're in a B2C one call close, you take them through that discovery call, you can probably give them the quote and close them right then and there. But let's say that you're in B2C and it's a two call close, or you're more of a B2B selling environment that's more complex selling. And let's say that, you've got to then book a demo or book a proposal or book a meeting with their board or the next department head or whatever your sales process is. Here's what you would say to them at the end to make sure they're serious about changing their situation. So you take them through that whole discovery process, okay, from where they are compared to where they want to be, and you say something like this. And I'm going to read it here, and then I'm going to go over here with you, all right? Okay, so what I can do, John, if it helps, is I can get to work on putting together a quote for if you'd like. Now, let's assume for a minute that we get you the quote and we're able to XYZ to solve the problem that you had mentioned. At that point, what do you see as the next step? Okay, so I can get to work on putting together a quote, a proposal for you. Now, let's assume for a minute that we get you the quote, we get you the proposal, and from what you're seeing, we're able to solve X and Y and Z problem to get you to A, B, and C, like you had mentioned to me. At that point, what do you want the next step to be? Or at that point, what do you see as the next step? Now, if the prospect cannot give you answers about his or her needs from that discovery call, this is probably a prospect that is either fishing for information or doesn't have the funding, the money, the budget, and just a waste of your valuable selling time. Okay, so I can get to work on putting together a quote proposal for you if you'd like. Now, let's assume for a minute that we get you the quote and we're able to solve X and Y and Z so that you can A, B, and C like you mentioned. What do you see as the next step from there? If they say, well, we'd have to see if we have the budget, or we'd have to wait till next month when we have our quarterly meeting with the board, or we'd have to do this at that point. We'd have to, check with their other vendor to see what they're willing to offer. Then you know that you've got a lot more work to do with that prospect. But if they say, oh, we would definitely do business with you at that point, or we would do this with you, or we do that with you, then you really need to pursue that opportunity. All right, does that help you? Okay, perfect. I'm going to give you another example of another one. Now, how many of you get to the beginning of a call? So let's say you call an outbound lead, and the outbound lead says, hey, I filled out that form and I asked you guys to call me, but I'm really busy right now. Can you just send me some information and I'll let you know if I'm interested? can you just can you email me some information and I'll let you know if I'm interested? How many of you lose sales because of that in the beginning? Okay, so I'm going to show you how to help them overcome that, all right? Because if you just send them information to an email without any discovery, okay, of what their problems are, the root cause of the problem, how the problems are affecting them, you pretty much know you're not going to make that deal, right? 99% chance. Okay, so here's what you want to do here. Okay. Now, what would most salespeople do? Just email it out and never hear back from them. So you don't want to be like most salespeople because you're not going to make that deal. All right. Prospect says, hey, I'm just really busy today. Can you send me this information by email and I'll get back to you maybe next week? Yeah, that's not a problem. Now, just so I can put together the best information for you, what exactly are you looking for? Okay, let's take a look at it. Yeah, you just agree. Yeah, that's not a problem. You want to disarm them. Okay, nice and easy. You don't argue with them. If you argue with them, it's over. Okay. Yeah, that's not a problem. Now, just so I can put together the best information for you, what exactly are you looking for? See how that goes right into the conversation, right into that sales process, all right? Well, I'm looking to see how your XYZ product could A, B, and C. Ah, okay. And who do you use now for your... And you go right into your first situation questions. Well, I'm looking to see how your product does X, Y, and Z. Ah, okay. And who do you use now for your X, Y, and Z? You simply start going through the engagement stage with your first situation questions. Like I said, it's a very simple way. It's a neutral way to go from just sending some information where you're never going to hear back from them, from actually having a real conversation, a discovery conversation with that prospect to find out what their real situation is, what their problems are, and where they want to be. Now, after you've taken them through that process, okay, if it's a one-call close, you're going to wrap up that deal, close that deal on that call. If you're in a two-call close or more of a B2B complex sound environment that requires multiple calls and touches, this is how you would handle it at the end. You're going to bring up what they said in the beginning at the end, okay? You're going to say it like this. Okay, and let me go to the next page here for you. All right, perfect. And I'll analyze it here for a second. Okay, so good first call. That gives us a better understanding of what's going on. Now, what I can do, if you'd like, is get to work on sending you information about how we could solve the XYZ challenges you had mentioned. Now, at that point, let's suppose you go through that information with your board and it fits into what you guys are looking for. What would you want the next step to be? Okay, so let's analyze this. Okay, so good first call. That helps me get a better understanding of what's going on. What I can do, if you'd like, is send you some information about how we could solve the XYZ challenge that you brought up. Now, let's suppose that you and the firm go through that information and it fits into what you're looking for. What would you want the next step to be at that point? All right, see how it works out. Now, if they come back and say, well, we would go over to legal and we would draw up an agreement and blah, 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 or we would do business with you for sure. That's when you know that you've done a really good job and you're going to pursue that opportunity. If you're like, well, at that point, I don't know, we'd have to meet with some other vendors. We'd have to go back to the vendor we use. At that point, we'd have to see if we have the money for this. Now you've got a lot of other concerns. You've got a lot of other work to do besides just emailing them more information at that point, okay? You also, if you email them anything, okay, which I would suggest if you're going to do a proposal, you don't email it to you, schedule it and go over it with them on Zoom or in person or whatever you do, or on the phone, whatever your sales process looks like. Because just emailing them information, they're just going to sit there and pick through it, have questions or concerns, and then nobody's there to answer it. And then you're playing email tag and nothing ever happens, all right? Now, make sure, like I said, follow what I showed you how to do today, all right? Next week, we'll be back on with another special episode with me and Matt, going over some different things that you guys have been asking us about. So today we went over, how do you respond when the prospect says, can you just send me references at the end of your sales process? How do you keep that in line to make sure the sale goes through? Second thing, how do you respond when the prospect says, hey, can you just send me a quote or a proposal at the beginning of a call? And there's no discovery yet. You don't even know what their problems are or what they're looking for. And then the third thing is, how do you respond at the beginning of a call if a prospect says, hey, can you just send me more information? Can you just send me more information at the beginning of a call? Make sure you write that down. Start using that, all right? And then make sure, if you haven't joined our Facebook group yet, we got about 40,000 people in there, and 40,000 people in there. Started that a little bit over a year ago. It's called salesrevolution.pro. So make sure you join salesrevolution.pro. We go live in there about 3 to 4 times a week with different Q&As, different trainings. And right when you join, check your DMs, check your messenger on Facebook. Somebody on my team, one of my surrogates, one of my stunt doubles, We'll message you over a free training called the NEPQ 101 mini course. It's a list of like different questions you can use for different sales situations that you're in, no matter the industry you're in. We pretty much train every industry on planet Earth right now, according to Forbes. So make sure you join the Facebook group, and I will see you next week. Hope you enjoyed that little nibble today that I gave you. And then once you join the Facebook group, look, if you want more advanced training for yourself or for your sales teams, if you want 2, 3, 4, or 5 times the sales you're making right now, just message us in the group and you're able to book with the team member, and they go through all the different training options that we have for your industry if you want to make a lot more money than you are now. Take care. Peace. Enjoy. Hey guys, if you enjoyed these, here's another you can watch right over here. Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below, join us, and we're going to help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.